Welcome back to the channel. I want to talk through what I'm seeing people do right now when it comes to the Icosa project. I'm basically seeing people buy Icosa. They want Icosa. I want to tell you why I think that is and give you guys a useful tool to make sure that if you're trying to get Icosa, you are doing it efficiently. And let's get right into it. So this is app.icosa.pro, and we've been spending a lot of time talking about this, and this project just gets more interesting over time, I think. And one of the things that I'm seeing, as I said, is the demand for Icosa going up. We just broke relatively meaningfully above the parity price. So basically that means that per Icosa, it's costing more hex than the parity suggests. And I want to talk through how to know what the parity is, and if you're paying more for it on the market than maybe you should. I'm going to link this graph below, and if you're going to use that link, just to be clear, some of the things you're going to need to do is when you first get to this graph, if you ever want to look at this, it's going to look like this, which isn't very helpful. You're going to need to go to right here, switch to price in Icosa. And then you're going to want to go over to the sideways ellipses here and click invert pair so that it's Icosa so that it's hex per Icosa. That's the number that we want to know how many hex does it take to get one Icosa? That's what we want to know. And those are the things you're going to need to edit in order to see that well. And this is just a really interesting chart because it just shows the parity and how it's, staying in parity for the most part, except for some exceptions. And like I said, we broke up to the upside here. And basically what that means, if you want Icosa, say that you want it today, when it breaks above parity like this, it's probably not in your best interest to buy Icosa off the market. What it may be in your best interest, the more hex you have, the more money basically you want to spend on Icosa, the more this is going to be to your advantage to not buy off the market, because this other strategy does cost transaction fees. And so the more money you're spending, the more the transaction fees matter less, I guess. And so I'll talk through this other one. So this basically what the other way to get Icosa is to use the HSI buyback and use your hex, stake it for the max length. It's really important that you stake for 5555. This will not work if you stake for less than that. Stake it for 5555 and get Icosa this way. When it breaks above, you have an advantage to getting your Icosa this way. And I think I have a tool to show you that I think is going to be really important now, because I see people wanting Icosa, and this is a way to get it more efficiently. And I think it's going to be a really useful tool. I'll show you the tool in a second. When we have the Big HSI Days, because I think people are going to want to consider arbing price and some things using the HSI buyback. And if they have this tool, they'll be able to be more confident in their decisions. So this was created by Crypto Sloth. He calls it Crypto Sloth Calculators. And this is a really, really useful spreadsheet. He has a bunch of calculations in this for various things. I'm just focusing right now on the hex per Icosa ratio. And you can see you enter information on this spreadsheet in general where it's green, and what you'd want to put in and make sure is correct before you look at the conclusion of the calculation is make sure that you have the right T-share rate. You can get the T-share rate from, if you go to the hex tab here, you can get it right here. So you can just copy that and paste it in, and that will make sure that your calculations are right. And what you're looking for is the hex to Icosa ARB value. So right now it's saying with our current T-share rate, the ARB value is 33.84. That means the ARB value is 33.84 hex per Icosa. And so what we would do is we would look at that. This is what the HSI buyback is going to give you. For hex in, it's going to give you it's going to be 33.84 hex per Icosa. But if you go on the market, and you can see it's small, but it's 33.02. So this number is lower. Right now, it's actually more, it's in your best interest to buy off the market and not use the HSI buyback because it costs you less on the market. But that's something you can look at and verify. And you can see we've dropped in price. So a little while ago, it was your advantage to create a hex stake, max length. I'll just walk through that really quick. So you go to hex and you go to create a stake, max hex, or you don't have to do max hex, but do whatever amount of hex that you want. Stake length, this has to be, for this to work well, you want to do 5.5, 5.5. It's very important that you choose HSI encapsulated stake. You can't do it with a native stake. It has to be HSI encapsulated. And then, create your stake, and then you tokenize it, which will be an option on the side. And then it'll show up like this stake here. It'll show up here, and then you can go to sell HSI, and you can sell it, and you'll get the amount of Icosa that it shows here. And it should be the same amount. You could run it through here. So for 100,000 hex, right now today, you'd get 2,954.72 Icosa. So you can also calculate how much Icosa you're going to get using this calculator as well. And I think this is really useful information, and thanks to Crypto Sloth for sharing this with everyone. I wanted to spread this out further through my channel because it's a very useful thing to have. I do want to talk though about the Icosa staking pools. I want to talk about why I think we broke above parity like we did right here. Like, why did we break out above? Why are people paying more for Icosa right now than they probably should? Why is there so much demand for Icosa? I'll talk through why I think that is. And it has to do with the Big HSI Days coming up. I think people realize that in order to buy an HSI, in order to bid on one, you're giving your Hedron. And the winning Hedron bid, all the Hedron that person gave is burned. It's gone forever. But it turns into Icosa in all three of these pools. We are all the SA, the Hedron staking pool, and the Icosa staking pool. And what I think people have realized is that right now, the least competitive pool that you can easily get into is the Icosa staking pool. Basically, if you went on the market and bought $1 of Icosa and $1 of Hedron, which would be a really small amount of both of those, but if that's what someone did and they staked it in here, they would have more yield from the Icosa staking pool for that $1 than from the Hedron staking pool. And of course, we are all the SA is really hard to get into right now. The only way to get into it is to buy other people's NFTs here, and they tend to be relatively highly priced. And so I think people are really preferring to get Icosa right now before, or leading up to the Big HSI Days, so that they can have some yield. And if you're going to get Icosa, I think they're thinking, get it now before there's all that yield. Let's take advantage of that opportunity. So I have a lot of thoughts on this myself, whether I think it's actually a good idea to buy now. I think if you don't have Icosa, it could be a good idea. If you already have Icosa and it's staked, I want to put another video out about some of my thoughts on that. They'd be hard to fit in this one, but I at least want to show you guys a useful tool. And if you do want it, if you do want Icosa, here's some things to think through. And if you haven't recognized that there is going to be very likely some real yield in these pools during the Big HSI Days, then hopefully you now are aware of that. I would say though, I think this is going out on a limb. I'm estimating what other people think. I think this is going to be more important for my other video, but I'm going to say it here anyway. I think people are estimating, I think the average person is estimating a 25% return in Icosa during the Big HSI Day. So during the first month and a half after November 13th, I think they're expecting, if they put, for example, in 100 Icosa, I think they're expecting roughly 25 Icosa back. That's a pretty good return. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I do think that people are this is what I think people think is going to happen, which I think is a is a valuable metric to understand. And you guys can decide for yourself if that's reasonable or not. But I think that's adding to demand, because they're basically thinking, if I spend $100 now, maybe I'll have $125 later. Or if I spend $1,000, maybe I'll have $250 later. And I think that's leading to the demand. And I expect, because of that, the demand to remain for Icosa up until, and I don't know how long it might still remain during the Big HSI. So I expected there to be demand for Icosa until November 13th and possibly after as well. Although I think that there's going to be some real sell pressure on Icosa during the HSIs also. And so that can be an interesting time. But wanted to share these with you. I'll put all the links in the description. And thanks to Crypto Sloth for sharing his calculator. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. I hope this is helpful. Talk to you in the next one.